Every morning you drink coffee, and every morning your body misses a fat-burning window that opens and closes in 20 minutes. There are two spices sitting in your kitchen right now that turn ordinary coffee into a metabolic trigger. One resets your insulin. The other forces your body to generate heat by burning stored belly fat. Together in a single cup, they create a reaction that researchers are calling one of the most efficient natural fat loss combinations ever measured. Most people will never add them because nobody connected these two sciences until now. Your belly fat is not there because you eat too much. It is there because your metabolism has been locked in storage mode. After 40, your insulin response starts to malfunction. It stays elevated longer after meals, which tells your body one thing: store everything, especially around the midsection. That visceral fat wrapped around your organs is not just ugly. It is metabolically active tissue that releases inflammatory chemicals, which make your insulin resistance even worse. It is a loop. Fat creates inflammation. Inflammation creates more fat. And your morning coffee, the one thing you never skip, has been doing nothing to break that cycle. Until now. I had a patient, 61 years old, retired school teacher. She came to me frustrated because she had tried calorie counting, walking 10,000 steps, even cutting carbs for 4 months. Her belly measurement had not moved 1 centimeter. Her fasting insulin was 19, nearly double what it should be. I told her to change nothing except what she puts in her morning coffee. 2 spices, specific doses, specific timing. Within 6 weeks, her fasting insulin dropped to 8. She lost 4.3 inches off her waist. Same diet, same walks, different coffee. And her story is not unique. It is biochemistry. The problem is that the weight loss industry does not want you solving this with 2 spices that cost less than $1 a week. The belly fat reduction market generates over $70 billion a year in the United States alone. Fat burner supplements, metabolic boosters, prescription injections, surgical procedures, all of them sold separately. All of them expensive, and none of them address the root mechanism, which is the insulin and thermogenesis loop that locks fat in place around your midsection. 2 kitchen spices do what that entire industry builds separate products for. One spice fixes the hormonal signal. The other spice forces the burn. Together they cost you roughly 11 cents per cup of coffee. Now, what I am about to walk you through is not a simple tip. This is a complete protocol. I am going to break down each spice individually. You will understand exactly what it does inside your body, which studies proved it, what dosage the researchers used, and the specific mistakes that will cancel out the entire effect if you get them wrong. Then I am going to show you how to combine both spices into a single morning coffee ritual that takes less than 60 seconds to prepare. Pay very close attention when we get to the second spice, because it does something that sounds almost impossible. It forces your body to create new brown fat cells, the type of fat that actually burns white fat for fuel. Researchers measured this on PET scans, and the results shocked even the scientists running the trial. Every study I reference is linked in the description below. Tell me your age and where you are watching from right now. I read every single comment. Now let us get into the first spice that goes into your coffee tomorrow morning: cinnamon. And I already know what you are thinking. Cinnamon is not new. Everybody knows cinnamon is healthy. That is exactly the problem. What most people know about cinnamon is dangerously incomplete. They sprinkle a random pinch of whatever cinnamon they bought from the grocery store into their coffee and think they are getting benefits. They are not. In many cases, they are actually damaging their liver. Here is why. There are 2 types of cinnamon sold in every store, and they could not be more different. Cassia cinnamon is the cheap one that dominates 95% of the market. It contains extremely high levels of a compound called coumarin, which is a blood thinner that causes liver toxicity with daily use. A 2012 study by the European Food Safety Authority found that just 1 teaspoon of cassia cinnamon per day exceeds the tolerable daily intake of coumarin by 300%. People who add cassia cinnamon to their coffee every single morning are slowly poisoning their liver while thinking they are doing something healthy. The cinnamon you need is called Ceylon cinnamon. It is sometimes labeled as true cinnamon or Sri Lankan cinnamon. Ceylon contains 250 times less coumarin than cassia. And here is where the new science gets interesting. A 2019 study published in the Journal of the Endocrine Society specifically tested Ceylon cinnamon on fasting blood glucose and insulin sensitivity in pre-diabetic adults. The results separated Ceylon from every other so-called blood sugar supplement on the market. What they found changes the entire conversation about belly fat and your morning coffee. That 2019 study followed 51 pre-diabetic participants for 12 weeks. The group taking 3 grams of Ceylon cinnamon daily saw their fasting insulin drop by 25.7%. Their fasting blood glucose decreased by 17%. And here is the number that matters most for belly fat. Their HOMA-IR score, which is the gold standard measurement for insulin resistance, improved by 34%. When your insulin resistance improves, your body finally gets the signal to stop storing fat and start releasing it, especially the visceral fat around your organs that refuses to move no matter how much you exercise. But the mechanism goes deeper than just insulin. A 2020 study published in Metabolism Clinical and Experimental discovered that cinnamaldehyde, the primary bioactive compound in Ceylon cinnamon, directly activates thermogenesis in human fat cells. The researchers took adipose tissue samples from human volunteers and exposed them to cinnamaldehyde. The fat cells started expressing higher levels of thermogenic genes, including UCP1 and FGF21. In simple terms, the cinnamon compound was literally reprogramming fat cells to burn energy instead of storing it. A separate clinical trial in the Archives of Biochemistry and Biophysics in 2021 confirmed this in living subjects. Participants consuming cinnamaldehyde daily for 8 weeks showed a 23% increase in fat oxidation rates measured by indirect calorimetry. Fat oxidation means your body is actively pulling fatty acids out of storage and burning them for fuel. The participants who showed the highest fat oxidation rates were the ones with the most insulin resistance at baseline. Meaning, if you currently carry stubborn belly fat and struggle with blood sugar, this spice works harder for you than it does for someone who is already lean. So now you understand what Ceylon cinnamon does inside your body. It fixes the insulin signal, and it reprograms fat cells to burn instead of store. But none of that matters if you use it wrong. And most people will get 2 things wrong without even realizing it. First, the dosage. The clinical studies that produced real, measurable results used between 1.5 to 3 grams of Ceylon cinnamon daily. That translates to roughly half a teaspoon to 1 full teaspoon. More is not better here. A 2018 dose-response study in clinical nutrition found that exceeding 6 grams per day actually blunted the insulin sensitizing effect because the body began downregulating its receptor response. So, stick to 1 teaspoon maximum per cup of coffee. Second, the timing. This is the mistake that cancels out everything. Most people drink their cinnamon coffee alongside a high-carbohydrate breakfast. Toast, cereal, oatmeal with sugar. When you flood your system with fast-digesting carbs at the exact same time as the cinnamon, the insulin spike from those carbs overwhelms the cinnamon's ability to regulate it. A 2020 study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that cinnamon reduced post-meal glucose spikes by 36%, only when consumed with a moderate or low glycemic meal. With a high glycemic meal, the benefit dropped to just 7%, nearly worthless. The ideal protocol is simple. Add 1 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon to your black coffee first thing in the morning. Drink it either during a fasted state or alongside a protein-rich, low-carb breakfast. Stir it well because cinnamon does not dissolve easily. Some people blend it for 10 seconds, which works even better. Now, before we get to the second spice, if you have been finding this valuable so far, hit the like button and subscribe so you do not miss more videos like this. What comes next is the part I told you to pay close attention to. The second spice is cayenne pepper. Yes, in your coffee. I know that sounds strange. Most people hear cayenne and they think of spicy food, hot wings, maybe Mexican cuisine. Nobody thinks of putting it in their morning cup. But that reaction is exactly why this works so well as a fat loss tool. Nobody is doing it, which means nobody is getting the benefits that clinical research has been quietly documenting for the last decade. Cayenne pepper contains a compound called capsaicin. Capsaicin is the molecule responsible for the burning sensation when you eat something spicy. But that burn is not just happening in your mouth. It is happening inside your fat cells. When capsaicin enters your bloodstream, it binds to a receptor called TRPV1 that exists on the surface of fat cells throughout your body. When TRPV1 activates, it sends a direct signal to your nervous system to initiate thermogenesis. Thermogenesis literally means heat generation. Your body begins burning calories specifically to produce heat, and the fuel it uses to generate that heat is stored fat. A 2012 landmark study published in the British Journal of Nutrition called capsaicin one of the most promising natural thermogenic compounds ever identified in human trials. But what researchers discovered after that study about capsaicin and a very specific type of fat tissue is what truly changes everything. That discovery is coming next. Here is what they found. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation used PET-CT scans to look inside the bodies of 40 adult participants after 6 weeks of daily capsaicin supplementation. The scans revealed something remarkable. The participants had developed significantly more brown adipose tissue. Brown fat is the opposite of the white fat hanging around your belly. White fat stores energy. Brown fat burns energy. It is packed with mitochondria that consume calories purely to generate body heat. Newborn babies have large amounts of brown fat, but adults lose most of it with age. Capsaicin was literally reversing that process. The study measured a 38% increase in detectable brown fat volume and a corresponding 12% increase in resting energy expenditure. That means participants were burning roughly 200 extra calories per day at rest without changing their diet or exercise, just from the capsaicin. But the appetite data is what makes Cayenne a true game changer for belly fat. A 2014 meta-analysis in the journal Appetite reviewed 20 clinical trials involving capsaicin and hunger. The combined data showed that capsaicin consumption reduced caloric intake by an average of 310 calories per day. The mechanism is hormonal. Capsaicin increases the release of GLP-1, the same hormone that prescription weight loss injections are designed to mimic. A 2021 study in Nutrients measured a 29% increase in GLP-1 secretion after a single dose of capsaicin. So you are simultaneously burning more calories through thermogenesis and eating fewer calories through natural appetite suppression. Two forces working on the same problem from opposite directions. And all of this from a spice that costs pennies. Now here is exactly how to add cayenne pepper to your coffee without making it undrinkable. This is where most people fail before they even start. They dump in a quarter teaspoon, take one sip, choke, and never try it again. That is the wrong approach entirely. The clinical research used doses ranging from 2 to 6 milligrams of capsaicin per serving. That translates to roughly 1/16 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. That is a tiny amount, barely visible at the bottom of your spoon. At this dose, you will feel a very mild warmth at the back of your throat, but no actual burning or discomfort. A 2018 tolerance study in the European Journal of Pharmacology confirmed that doses below 4 milligrams of capsaicin produced the full thermogenic response without triggering any gastrointestinal distress. So more is not better. A tiny pinch is the clinically effective dose. Start with 1/16 of a teaspoon for the first week. If you tolerate it well, move up to 1/8 of a teaspoon by week 3. Never exceed a quarter teaspoon per cup. Add the cayenne after your coffee has cooled slightly for about 2 minutes. Boiling temperatures above 95 degrees Celsius degrade capsaicin by up to 40%, according to a 2020 study in the Journal of Food Science. Stir thoroughly for at least 15 seconds so the compound distributes evenly. Quality matters enormously here. Buy cayenne pepper that lists its Scoville heat unit rating on the label. You want between 30,000 to 50,000 SHU for optimal capsaicin concentration. Avoid generic grocery store brands that blend cayenne with cheaper fillers like paprika. organic single-origin cayenne from reputable spice companies guarantees you are getting the actual compound that produced results in the clinical trials. Now here's where everything comes together, and this is the part that makes this protocol genuinely different from using either spice alone. When you combine Ceylon cinnamon and cayenne pepper in the same cup of coffee, something happens that neither spice can do by itself. You create a dual pathway attack on belly fat. The cinnamon fixes your insulin sensitivity, which unlocks fat cells and allows stored fatty acids to be released into the bloodstream. But released fat does not mean burned fat. If your metabolic rate is low, those fatty acids simply get recirculated and stored again. That is where the cayenne takes over. The capsaicin-driven thermogenesis creates an immediate demand for fuel. Your body needs energy to generate heat, and it pulls that energy directly from the fatty acids that cinnamon just unlocked. One spice opens the vault. The other spice burns what is inside. Without both, you are only doing half the job. A 2017 study in the International Journal of Obesity tested this exact combination principle. Participants who used an insulin sensitizer alongside a thermogenic compound simultaneously lost 2.4 times more visceral fat than participants using either approach alone over 10 weeks. The stacking effect is not additive, it is multiplicative. Here is your exact morning protocol. Wake up. Wait 10 minutes. Brew your coffee however you prefer. Let it cool for 2 minutes. Add 1 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon and 1/16 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Stir for 15 seconds or blend briefly. Drink it in a fasted state before eating anything. Do not add sugar, milk, cream, or any sweetener. Keep your fasted window for at least 30 more minutes after finishing the cup to let both compounds absorb fully without interference. If you follow this protocol consistently, here is what the research says you can expect. Within the first 72 hours, your post-meal blood sugar spikes will begin to flatten as the Ceylon cinnamon recalibrates your insulin response. By the end of week 1, the capsaicin will have started upregulating your TRPV1 receptors, which means your thermogenic response gets stronger with each passing day. Your body literally becomes more efficient at burning fat the longer you use cayenne. By week 4, your fasting insulin levels should begin to measurably drop, which is the signal that your body has finally shifted from fat storage mode into fat release mode. And by week 6 to 8, you will start seeing the visible changes around your midsection that no amount of crunches or cardio could produce on their own. Remember what happened with my patient. 61 years old. Same diet, same walks. The only variable she changed was her morning coffee. 2 spices, specific doses, specific timing. 4.3 inches gone from her waist. Fasting insulin cut in half. That is not magic. That is biochemistry working in your favor for the first time instead of against you. You do not need expensive supplements. You do not need injections that cost hundreds of dollars per month. You do not need to overhaul your entire life. You need 1 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon, 1 tiny pinch of cayenne pepper, and the coffee you were already going to drink tomorrow morning. The only difference between knowing this and benefiting from it is whether you actually do it tomorrow. If this video changed the way you think about belly fat in your morning routine, hit subscribe and share this with someone who drinks coffee every single day. They will thank you for it. Thank you so much for watching.